Greetings, what a great day to be a Pokemon trading card game fan. Today, I am looking at the Team Rockets Mewtwo EX deck specifically. Now, there are tons of ways to play this Team's Rocket decks because there are tons of Team Rockets cards. But I'm looking specifically at this one I found at a City League. I just wanted to find an example of a Mewtwo EX deck because I wanted to know if it was viable for NAIC, because that's what I'm preparing for. Now, I'm not going to look at this deck so much as the same as I usually do. I don't have a flow for it. I'm just looking at some potential of specifically this deck, or this list. Like I said, there are other Team Rocket Pokemon that do different things, but this one seemed to have some success. As just an example, so let's look a little bit closer at it because I can read Japanese, and I assume a lot of you don't either. So I took a cheat sheet. Not every card in the deck is here, but most of the Japanese ones that would say new important stuff. And it's not great quality. If you've been watching my channel, you're used to seeing Tabletop Simulator. It turns out the mod or the extra brick shop piece that I used to take in my decks into Tabletop Simulator doesn't like Japanese cards. Something about the way Japanese cards are listed in Limitless or wherever it pulls cards from doesn't work. So I threw them in my photo editing app, GIMP. It's cool. Like I said, there's no flow. It lays them all out. It'll serve the purpose we have for today. Like I said, the Japanese cards that we haven't seen yet and some of their counts, so we can still kind of get a mental image on what we're working with here. The two big first cards we saw were this, I don't even remember I'm not going to remember what all these Pokemon are. Spidops, that puts a basic energy card from this card pile onto it, and for Grass Colorless it hits 30 for each Team Rocket on the bench. Not crazy by itself. Energy acceleration is always pretty good, and it's with its basic, that's a 50 HP guy. There's 4 of those, 3 of these in the deck. We've played alongside MewTBX with one of those abilities that decide to nerf it instead of help it, like my poor boy Palafin EX. And for a Psychic Colorless, Deletion Spear, it does a 160 damage, up to 280 if you can discard 2 colorless or 2 energy from the bench Pokemon. So, I mean, that's a lot of words to say what it's saying, but it can also hit for 220 and then 280 after that. But only hit for 160 if you don't have any energy to discard or choose to, and the ability says it can't attack unless it has a bunch 4 or more Teams Rocket Pokemon in play, so at least 3 on the bench. Pretty solid. I'll dig a little bit deeper into that when I come back to it. We got Wobbuffet, moved a bunch of damage counters from a benched Team Rockets player to one of the active, which is pretty cool. That, again, coming back to it, got a genome hacking for a Terra Pokemon for the 60 HP Mimikyu. Love that. This is an interesting one. We have a Sneasel, one of my favorites, for Double Dark, doing 20 damage to one of the opponent's benched Pokemon for each damage counter on that Pokemon. So if it's already damaged, finish it off, even if it's trying to hide away, or if we combo with another card we'll look at in a second. We have an interesting Manaphy-like ability. Resist Veil, prevent all effects of your opponent's Pokemon attacks done to your basic Team Rockets Pokemon. So that means even if you have, the baby 50 HP version of this, or really any of them, obviously any of the boss's Team Rockets Pokemon to play, it'll prevent the effects of the opponent's attacks. So that's like damage counters, and that's even an active. So you can't sob the active and prevent it from retreating. You can't put damage counters on the bench. You can't burn or paralyze from any of those attacks. That's pretty strong. I didn't even consider most of those options when I first was looking at that. So that's going to be really, really good to have on the bench. And then we have a suite of really good supporters. And y'all get to be mad at me because I don't know who half of these guys are. But we have draw until you have 5 cards in your hand, but if all of them are Team Rockets Pokemon, obviously they will be. Well, all of your Pokemon in play of Team... Oh, actually, because it plays the Xatu line, potentially you don't get the 8. So, and this one will be a big question about the list if the Xatu is really worth it here. And you have pretty much a Guzman for Team's Rocket, or Prime Catcher if you're a newer player like me. Prime Catcher for your Team's Rocket guys. Then we have a Battle VIP on steroids. 3 basic Team Rockets Pokemon, put them on in your hand, not even on the bench. And can be used first turn, so that's absolutely broken. If you don't remember Battle VIP, you're a newer player, and that's okay. It was kind of crazy, and you don't need to play 4 of them because you can play it later on, and you have something to search for all these guys anyways. You have the Team Rockets version of Unfair Stamp and supporter version. This one is a one of search for a trainer card. It's a one of because maybe in weird situations you might want to grab some of your other supporting trainers. An item way to find any of those other supporters. A stadium, which I didn't know existed until I was looking at this list because I didn't look that closely at this list. Once per turn, that players use a supporter card with Team Rockets in the name. All of these, the player may draw 2 more cards. Crazy extra draw. Imagine drawing 10 cards in a turn. And then the 4 of Team's Rocket Energies only works with Team Rocket's Pokemon, but as long as this card is attached to a Pokemon, it provides 2 of any combination, Psychic and Darkness Energy. If your mind isn't already thinking of wacky combos with these cards, and with the knowledge that there are in fact other Team Rockets Pokemon that are maybe even other supporters that aren't shown here, like I don't know, go build a deck. It's crazy work. So I only took a couple of notes because my brain started to hurt from thinking about this deck, believe it or not. But first and foremost, consistency. This deck mulligans 13.86% of the time. So 85% of the time you're not mulliganing. So that's pretty consistent as far as basic goes. 60% of the time you have you're starting out 2 basics here. And this is of course including the non-Team Rocket stuff, the cards that we knew already existed. Clefairy is in here as well. So, and there's so much draw and supporter based. So this current meta where Badoo kills everything, Badoo don't think is slowing this deck down a lot with the supporters. Maybe if they only get that item and can't grab a supporter, maybe, but like it'll be fine in a Badoo format. Now something I did notice is this deck has a lot of draw, but not a lot of ways to discard. Here's what I mean by that. If we look at the full list, Ultra Ball discards, Earthen Vessel discards, Secret Box discards, this Pokemon discards, but also needs the energy onto it. And then you can discard by retreating. Now, the obvious combo is Mewtwo is in the active. It has a special energy on it. This you've attached for turn to it, so you can swing for the 160, but it's turn 2 because you chose to set up first turn. You've evolved. You have some of this energy in the discard pile. Maybe you're using an energy switch as well, but that's the crux of it. The only way that you're getting energies of the discard are through Ultra Ball or Earthen Vessel, which there's 4 of those and 2 of those. Not impossible to get, not impossible with a secret box, and a lot of draw. But I feel like if I picked this deck up, I would get all the Pokemon out and have some crazy strong supporters in hand, but struggle to get the Ultra Ball and like get 1 or 2 of the energies in the discard, and then like get them onto this Pokemon. But I feel like that's going to be a struggle. Maybe if I shuffle this up once the cards come out for real, it wouldn't feel like that. But that's the first thing I'm thinking, like, wow, how am I going to get stuff in the discard pile if I don't start with Secret Box and have to use my 1 supporter to go get the Secret Box and discard other stuff in order to grab these things. Like, I don't know. Maybe one of y'all can ask, needs to tell me more about it, but that's like a big thing. Lots of draw, not a lot of discard. So it almost as if all of that works against this combo. So that's interesting. I have a feeling that you will consistently be able to swing the 160 with the Mew and then do other things that I'll get into, but not so often hit for the 2 full 80. And that kind of sucks. However, with some of the other techs you have going on, that is okay. And maybe this is a mid to late game attack consistently, and I'll get into why that might be the case with some of these other guys. This is cool. A lot of things can knock Mewtwo out in one shot, but if you don't, which is a lot of decks won't do early in the game, you Guzman something up, Prime Catcher something up, set up this guy, and then plop that damage on somewhere else. You're up against Dragapult. Dragapult hits into your Mewtwo, spreads damage counters, knocking out this guy in the base form of this guy, because that's going to happen. But then Wobbuffet, 1 prize up in the active, moving 200 damage over to help a mid-game 1 prize change with a solid attack. That's pretty cool. A lot of things will one-shot your Mewtwo EX. Most things will one-shot everything else. But that is something that can happen mid-game, especially if you're like going up against a hot Zacian deck like me. I'd be trying to do 210 damage and stuff. So knowing this card exists against this deck, I'm going to purposely not use a full setup cram into this Mewtwo because I don't want the Wobbuffet to then turn that 210 onto 210 to my Latias or Fez. And I feel like that's going to be like one of those cards that you can use in pretty solid situations to fully heal a Mewtwo and to get a solid knockout, and that's going to be a higher level play, higher level mistake to make with that in play. Obviously, the Mimikyu is great for copying Dragapult and some Terra Box stuff. Other than that, there's not enough people playing Terra stuff. Charizard is a thing. That would be pretty strong. I can think like late game Charizard attack if you've gotten your other prizes off of the 280, the Mew EX 280 into Pidgeot. So that's might be a pretty solid matchup with that card. But Charizard, Dragapult, Terra Box, not going to see a lot of play, but again, it's a 1-up tech, so I can't fault you for that. It's too strong to take out, not strong enough to put multiple copies in. Then we have the Sneasler, 20 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So that says, okay, I'm Mewtwo EX. I've partially damaged one of your guys, so I'm going to Guzman something that sucks into the active to get out, and then I'm going to put my Sneasel into play, and then I'm going to turn that 160 into, I'm not going to be able to do the quick math, way more, the math makes 20 damage to one of your opponents. So it turns a 160 into 3 times that, which will knock out pretty much anything. And that strength there can come from maybe you cop that 6 damage counters from this turns into 180, and that knocks out like a 1 prizer, or maybe a partial knockout from there. That's just strong. And that's probably going to come from an early Mewtwo attack that doesn't quite knock out what it's supposed to. So again, not going to happen too often, but would be useful enough to put 1 prize in there, so that's cool. But that's it when you start thinking about it. You have a lot of ways to do funky things to draws. Your consistency's high from this draw. But when you look at the pure output, you're looking at, and I want to make up some numbers, 160, I'm going to say a good 60% of the time or more. Like, I'm not saying it's a 50-50 that this gets set up. It's probably more if you're playing right. And my headset just turned off. And with like the not to, that might happen slightly more often than that, even, especially with Guzma. So you can, attach Guzma something and then start attacking. I'm still calling it that it's not going to be doing 160 turn 2 going first more often than that. But that's okay, because you have ways to come up with that, and I think that makes this deck fair. But until we have broken ways or more consistent ways to discard energy to even use this ability, I think it's a mid-attack healing or punishment suite from here, end game with strong attack. So like, you know, if it's dark, it's fine here. So if you're playing against a dark deck, maybe you're fine from the Spite Ops. But I can see why this deck isn't seeing a lot more play. And like full picture here, since we kind of know what everything does now. Dragon Pokemon, so you're fine against the Dragapults. Gardevoir, I have a feeling Gardevoir eats this deck. One Monkey Dory, a TM Evo knocking out like a bunch of little prizers if you have 2 or 3 of these on the bench. Like Roaring Moon, Raging Bolt, getting full knockouts on this Mewtwo. A lot of 1 prizers that might affect the 1 prize trade, but if I'm thinking about playing against this deck with Hop Zacian, and this is pretty confident of me to say I'm winning. Like, I 2-hit a Mew mid game. I 1-shot it with Brave Slash because it's taken so long to do what it's doing. I've picked it up. I've won the prize trade because I can cram into these little guys and trade the crams several times without problems, and Snorlax. And then the Zacian, this doesn't protect against my Zacian damage, so I put 30 damage on one of the 2 Mew EXs in play, and I soften it up with my 120 Zacian. I finish the Mewtwo, then it has 260 on it. Well, it has 250 on it, so no, the Moon doesn't get a knockout then. But it's slow enough to what doesn't one-shot my Zacian, so I'm Zacianing twice into this deck. Like, I'm calling it. Like, it'll eat the first 160 that it takes to set up. And then even if it turns around and tries to put that 120 back on me, I'm not that worried about it. Like, sure, you're taking a cram, but that's... Okay, I want to start rambling now. I think this is fun. I love Mewtwo EX. I will be building this deck post in NAIC and trying to have fun with it, and I will. But as someone who's prepping for NAIC, I'm not worried about this deck like I thought I was when I first sat down here. So I'm excited for people to cook with it more. I think it's going to be ultra consistent. I don't think its power level is going to hit what it needs to wreck, at least in my world, with the deck I'm coming in. It'll do pretty decent into Dragapult, it looks like. But I feel like Gardevoir is going to beat it, and Raging Bolt is going to beat it. And that's where I want to leave it. So, but I'm excited to be proved wrong, and I don't have an experience in this game to say any of that super ultra definitively. But I would like to know what you would like to know. A, what do you think about the deck? B, what do you think about this style? I just kind of blabbed at a camera, which is, and I hope I gave more information than other people in this YouTube space, because I don't like just have cards being read to. And that's about it. Have a good one.